You know, on behalf of the council, we're really excited to have this community connection tonight. There's things that we know that our residents want to hear about from us, from our council, from our staff. And so we're really excited to be here tonight to provide you with some of that information. The first thing we're going to talk about is growth in Marana. You know, I think that's one of the #1 questions that I get. You know, why are you growing so much? Why is Marana doing this? So hopefully tonight we're going to answer those questions. Are we really growing that much, or does it just appear that we are? You know, why is it that all you see is a McDonald's going up and a Taco Bell? I mean, those are some questions that I get all the time, and hopefully we can get that answered for you. The next thing we're going to talk about is RTA Next, and why RTA Next is so important for the town of Marana. And the benefits that we will receive from RTA Next, and how we feel that RTA Next has been a good value, or will be a good value, and how the first RTA really was beneficial for the town of Marana. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is data centers, depending on how you say them, they're the same thing. So we're going to discuss those at length tonight. We've got some really qualified individuals up here tonight that can answer your questions on those, the impact to our community, the benefit to our community, and what those will bring to us. And so without anything else further on my part, I'd like to turn the time over to our Town Manager, Terry Rozema.
All right, so just a few housekeeping details. If you need a restroom, back up to the lobby, and they can direct you to that. In terms of just how things are going to flow here tonight, as the mayor said, we're going to start off with a little panel discussion. I'm going to ask these guys questions. Anybody listen to Real Talk with the Town? My name is Terry, and I am your host.
That's you.
That's me. Right, so it's going to be kind of like that. I'm going to have questions, and these guys are going to take turns kind of answering some of those questions for us. So hopefully, the whole idea here, folks, is to get people educated and informed about our town. And this is something the council has given us direction. We need to get out there more. We need to be reaching our residents and letting them know what's going on so they're fully familiar and informed. So that's what tonight is all about. I gotta say, I love the turnout. We have done these for years, and a lot of times we end up with like 3 or 4 people. And staff outnumbers the people that are in the house. So it's nice to see this many people here. Really grateful that you're out. So let's go ahead and jump into talk a little bit about growth in Marana. Am I doing this the wrong? There we go. All right, so I'm going to start off with Jason here, because the first question out the bat is something that we get quite a bit, as the mayor was talking about. We get people asking about, you're growing so fast and all of the open space is going to be gone before we know it. And so, Jason, I'd like to kind of have you talk a little bit about the area that the town of Marana encompasses, and how much of that is actually occupied with development, what's available, and we'll kind of go from there based on your answers.
All right, thanks, Terry. Good evening, everyone. My name's Jason Angell. I'm the director. Is that how it works?
There we go.
There's a light on. I was the wrong color. My name's Jason Angell. I'm the director of development services for the town. Terry, to your question, we're roughly 122 square miles makes up the town. Of that, there's about 30% of the town that has been developed. That leaves about 70% of the overall community that is yet to be developed. And a good portion of that lies on the northeast side of the community, as well as the far west side of the community, out by like the airport, and then stretching up on the western edge and up to the north side, up near Pinell County.
All right, and I was a little bit remiss here because I probably should have introduced our staff up here. So we got Jason Angell, Director of Development Services, Curt Woody, Director of Economic Development, Fausto Burruel, Director of Public Works, and Heidi Lasham, who is our Director of Water and Wastewater. Okay, so they get different questions here. They'll all get a chance to jump in here. But Jason, we're going to stick with you because we're talking about land and zoning. So What's currently available for development in Marana that hasn't been built on, and what remains currently entitled versus unentitled, and in what parts of Marana is that primarily located?
Yeah,
You hit on that a little bit.
yeah, so the development side, like I said, there's roughly about 70% of the property is yet to be developed in the town. When we say entitled, that is the zoning classifications that are placed upon a property. So when we say an entitlement has been granted, that means that a development proposal or a master plan for that property has been presented and approved. I would say roughly about 50% of our community has been entitled or zoned for development. That leaves about 50% of it yet to be entitled. A good portion of the unentitled property is all of the state land that exists within our jurisdiction. State land owns a lot of property on the northeast side of the community, up the west side of Dove Mountain coming all the way down to I-10. That's all state land predominantly. Out by the airport and also on the west side of our community is all state land. State land has a different process that they go through as far as entitlement. Still has to be done locally, but it's really a larger scale entitlement process that involves the state review.
All right. So can you explain for our residents here a little bit? Because one of the questions we get is, why did they put a McDonald's there? We need a Five Guys. Or why are they building another car wash? Or why are they building another storage facility? So can you explain a little bit about how the zoning works?
Yeah.
What's zoned for residential versus mixed use? And how is the process for actually identifying what goes in any particular place? And how much control, Jason, do you?
I have very little control. Ask my wife, I have zero control. Do we have a zoning map by chance?
Oh, yeah, probably.
2 slides.
Here we go.
And the reason I bring that up, but first of all, if there's anything we don't like, we always blame Curt as far as development goes. So this is our zoning map that currently exists for the community. As you can't read it all, but at the bottom there are all the different zoning categories within the community. We have 29 different zoning categories within the community. 11 of those are residential, 2 of them are multifamily, 3 of them are commercial, and 2 are industrial. The rest are what we refer to as old alphabet zones, which were in place when the community was first incorporated. But like from a residential zoning classification, there's a variety of uses that could be existing within there. And for example, you could have a single family home all the way to a park, a place of worship, a church that could exist within a residential home, residential category. We also have categories that allow for like attached products. Those are like your twin homes, your triplexes, your duplexes. And then you go all the way up to the multifamily, which is the apartment complexes. Those have their own separate residential category, but they are classified as residential. From a commercial standpoint, you could have from our general village commercial, which is our most popular commercial zoning district, you would have hotels, amusement, assisted living, banks, medical, restaurants. And when we say restaurants, to your point, Terry, it's a general broad categorization of a use that is within a zoning district. We don't get to pick who goes in there. We get to pick the type of use that is allowed within our zoning districts. So the example I always use when we're talking to staff, we may allow for a hotel to be allowed in a certain zoning district. We don't get to determine whether it's a Motel 6 or a Ritz-Carlton. It's a hotel. That's what's allowed by zoning districts.
All right, very good. So can you walk us through just real briefly, what kind of process do people have to go through? Is it a situation where they show up on a Monday and by Friday they got a permit and by the following week they're going vertical? How long, as you see something coming out of the ground here, what's kind of the process that people go through to actually get to that point?
Yeah, there's plenty of residents that would like to see it done that quick, Monday and up and building on Friday, but it's not. Typically, the way our development process starts is somebody comes in and says, I have a project or I have an idea that I would like to explore. That starts with what we have as a pre-app conversation where we'll get all of our departments in a room, sit down with the applicant, understand what their proposal is, and then we'll talk through the different things that will be required of them, whether it's from an engineering perspective or Northwest Fire will join us in those meetings. We'll have the building official in the room. We have all of our different departments represented to talk about the different criteria. From there, then we enter into a zoning process, which then takes it before Plan Commission and our town council for discussion and ultimately a decision. That could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to complete that process, depending upon the size of the project. If that's then approved, then they move into the actual grading and permitting process. Depending upon, once again, the size of a project, let's just say like one of our developments, residential developments, the neighborhoods that are going in. A grading permitting process for a residential subdivision will take anywhere from 9 to 12 months to complete that. Then you're getting into the building permit process to go through that. So I would say a new development really taking place is anywhere from 2 to 3 years, depending upon the size of the project.
We're government and we move swiftly. All right, we're going to move over here to Curt Woody. And we're going to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. I think we have some cards. And so if you have a question, you want to write that down on a card. The fine ladies over here, Andrea and Danielle, will give you a card to you. If you just raise your hand, they'll get a card to you so you can ask a question here. But Curt, let's turn to economic development because I think people want to know, like, what's on the horizon? What kind of things are we doing specifically as an organization to draw the kind of amenities, the kind of jobs that people want to see in the community?
Yeah, so there's several different levels of strategies that we use within the town. At the very basic level is to get the message out. It starts at the top with the council. It has to be a message that the town of Marana is a very business-supportive community. We want your businesses within the town of Marana, and we support your business. We want you to be successful. So getting that message out is important on the front end. We've been doing that for many years, and it's resonating. I can't even begin to tell you how many people I've talked to over the years that have come up to me and said, doing my due diligence, looking for a place to start a business, or I want to relocate my business, and everybody tells me to come to the town of Marana. And I hear that over and over again. So the message is working. The next level is a platform that I use called GIS Web Tech. And the website URL is selectmarana.com. Anybody can use it. It's a free service. And it's the website that I use to promote the assets that we have within the town, both properties and buildings. It's also a website that you can get demographics on steroids. Anything you want to find out about demographics within the town of Marana, you can find out. Education, household median incomes, labor force, everything that you can possibly come up with on a demographic side is on that website as well. So use it. Go to selectmarana.com to see those assets. From there, we go to our regional partners. Pima County is a regional partner for us, and also an agency that was our regional economic development organization. It used to be called Sun Corridor. They're now with the Tucson Chamber, and they've changed their name to the Tucson Chamber of Southern Arizona. That staff all went over to the chamber. They're still doing the same thing. They do national recruitment. They've had boots on the ground in California for years. So they will bring leads into the town of Marana and other communities within our southern region. From there, we go to the state level. The state level is Arizona Commerce Authority, and they have not only a national reach, but an international reach. So they go out and recruit businesses from all across the world, bring them to the state of Arizona. They disseminate those proposal requests out to the communities, and we propose on those projects. It could be a project where they're just looking for land and they'll build their own building. It could be a project where they want an existing facility only, they want to move in right away. So we do a lot of proposals with the Arizona Commerce Authority. And then lastly, national site selection consultants. We've got to be front of mind with those folks. it would cost an enormous amount of money to be hopping on airplanes and going to every one of those consulting firms around the country. So I go to national site selection consultant conferences every year. I go to 2, and that's where these guys all hang out, guys and gals both. And I can talk to 20, 30 national site selection consultants all within a 3-day period. Saves an awful lot of time. You get that message out to them over and over, your facial recognition, the name. Now they know who I am, who the town of Marana is, and next time I go, oh, I've got a project I want you to take a look at.
All right, thanks, Curt. And any word though, Curt, on those 2 big warehouse buildings down there? How we looking at that?
So we had 2 proposals go out. One was for a semiconductor company. The other was for an electric semi-truck manufacturer. And we made first cut. So they made site visits out to the 2 big boxes that you see on the frontage road out there. They made site visits out to those 2 locations. It was originally designed and built to be 1 user per building. But the market went awfully soft right when the doors opened, so the owner of those 2 buildings are now saying, all right, we'll take smaller square footages. We'll take 200,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet, and they'll quad off those buildings. So these type of site selections take months to go through. We haven't heard from the first cut, but they were going to go to other states and look at sites there as well. Plus, the big gorilla is Phoenix. They get a lot of attention up there, but at least we're getting site visits, so that's a good thing.
Hey, Curt, could you just kind of share with our residents some of the industry and the business and that we're trying to draw? I mean, what's kind of the breadth, the width of that we're attempting to attract?
So the first thing you do is your economic development strategic plan. You can find this on our website, the Marana Town website, under Economic Development Department. The plan is in there. It goes through an entire analysis of what are your assets within your town. They do a competitive analysis. Who are you competing against? Is it Oro Valley? Is it City of Tucson? Is it communities up in Phoenix? They start to identify. They'll also do a SWOT on your town. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You find out where your strengths are. So they look at the business sectors that are already here within the town. Then they look at the business sectors that are going to be popular in growth mode over the next 10 years. Are there synergies between the 2? And what emerges out of that plan, once they do that, are 4 business sectors that we should be pursuing and we are pursuing. Now, if a company comes to me that's not part of these 4, we're going to entertain them. We will talk to them. But the 4 they said we should look at are information technology, advanced manufacturing, supply chain logistics. So we have 19 miles of Interstate 10 that bisect our town. Makes a lot of sense for us to have logistics facilities along Interstate 10. And then lastly is healthcare. We've got a little bit of healthcare already started within the town. We've got a couple of emergency rooms. We've got a dialysis center. We have the Marana Hospital, Carondelet Network, and Tucson Medical Center, about 32 acres at the Marana Center. And recently we've talked to Banner Health. So healthcare is also going to be a strong sector for us as well.
All right, thank you, Curt. So,
Just for clarification.
sure, go ahead.
Thanks. You referred to a facility that's already built and that that people are considering. So are we building facilities in advance and then going out and trying to find someone to fill those?
Great question. We don't build buildings. So what happened with these 2 buildings that are here is a company called Flint Development came into town and said, hey, we build spec buildings, and by the time we have these things coming out of the ground, we have them filled up. Well, they came, they built, they stayed empty for quite a while. So it was kind of a shift, if you will, in how big of a building people were wanting. And so they built 2 500,000 square foot buildings roughly, and people weren't interested in that much space. So now they're looking to quad those off, make them 100,000, 200,000, whatever people need. So that's what Curt's talking about when he's talking about putting those, propositioning those to companies that want smaller footprints. So hopefully we'll get those filled soon. That's the hope.
And I'll piggyback on that. Pre-Great Recession, developers built spec all the time because they knew that the economy was so good that they would have those filled by the time they opened the doors. Post-Great Recession, I couldn't get a developer to do a spec to save my life. Nobody would do it. Lending institutions got so tight, they wouldn't even lend the money to the developers to do a spec building unless it was already 50% leased out. So it became extremely difficult. And when Flint Development came to us and said, we're going to do 2 specs, we think the market will be strong enough when we open the doors that we'll already have them filled. And as soon as they opened the doors, the market went soft. So spec is tough to have up and running, ready for companies.
All right. We're going to move on and talk a little bit about infrastructure and preparing for the growth, right? There's a lot that goes into running a community and making sure that we're ready when people come to us. And we have multiple master plans. We have a general plan, the 2040 general plan. We have transportation master plans. We have parks and recs master plans. We have plans for our plans. That's how many plans we have. So I've got Fausto and Heidi here to talk a little bit about water and transportation, because those are things that people are always concerned about. Am I going to be able to get around my town? Am I going to have water when I turn on the faucet? Is the toilet going to flush and actually go someplace when I do that? Right? So those are things that people want to know. And so that's why Heidi and Fausto are here to talk a little bit about all the work that goes on behind the scenes to prepare for that and make sure that we're ready. So I'd like to, we'll start here since Heidi has the mic in her hand. She's anxious to talk. Let's talk about water portfolio. Where's the town at in terms of the ability to be able to provide water to our residents here in the town?
Great question. So to start off, to go backwards a little bit, when we talked about master plans, the water department also has a water master plan as well as a wastewater master plan, which also feeds into our 5-year CIP program, which fills in all the projects that we need to build, which when we're talking about water in a growing community, there's a lot of projects that are on our list. 2 of the biggest ones is expanding our wastewater treatment facility so they are able to flush your toilet. So we actually have quite a bit of capacity currently in it, but with all the development that is coming down the pipe right now, we're working on looking at the next phases of that expansion. So we do have a designer and contractor on board to do that expansion for us. And then on the flip side, on the water side, we have to make sure that you guys have enough potable water to, when you turn your faucet on, that you're actually gonna get water to drink. So we do have, it's called Heritage Park Water Plant. That is our next big one that's coming up for the growth that's going on in North Marana in order for us to keep filling that supply. The one thing that the town does have is a designation of assured water supply, which is our 100 years of water. So ours is up to 15,353 acre feet, which nobody really talks in acre feet, right? So that's over 5 billion gallons of water that we have available over the 100 years that we have to draw out of the ground to give to our residents.
Thank you, Heidi. If you can give that, this young lady and give you a card, you can write that down, we'll take this here at the end. Can you talk a little bit about what the town has done with regard to increasing our designated assured water supply, and what water is available to us to draw from that we service and deliver to our residents?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do for pulling out, we do have a lot of renewable resources that we work with currently. So one of the things, our treatment facility, once we treat the water and put it back into the ground, which is A+ effluent, which is the best clean water coming out of a water reclamation facility that you can recharge into the ground, we then have that to recharge our aquifer and allow us to pull that back out through our wells around town. We also recharge other water. Currently CIP water is recharged. And then we're also looking into Bureau of Reclamation as well as surface water, recharging that to be able to have additional resources in the ground to pull out for future.
So can you just kind of give your perspective, Heidi, if you could let our residents know your.
You got it.
Died.
Well, maybe it's
You're coming across with me.
You want this one?
I don't know. I'll be louder. Hello?
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
From your perspective, working in the water department and with folks in the water department, relative to our ability to deliver water? I mean, what's the confidence level there? Because I do hear a lot of people talking about, we're building too much, we aren't going to be able to get water to all these people. So what's the process that we go through when a new development comes on board? How do we guarantee that we're going to be able to provide water to that new development while still providing water to the residents that we currently have?
Absolutely. When a developer comes in, they actually will start development services and do their plans, but part of the process on the water side is the modeling. So those that come in have to put together a hydraulic model, and we review it as well as third party to make sure that we do have that capacity moving forward. So we have our whole existing system built in there, and then we add in that development to see what stresses that does to our system. And then as of right now, to be honest, we have a really healthy aquifer and our supply is doing very well. So for now and for years to come, we're sitting good.
Very good. One thing I want to kind of point out for our residents here, that a lot of people aren't familiar with, is the fact that we have an irrigation district here in our community. That is highly beneficial to this town. And the reason that it's highly beneficial is because all of the water that's going on to the fields that you see that are being farmed, right? That is water that is going to be used, right, for future development. As development goes on that land, the water that was used to irrigate those fields, that gets cut essentially by 3/4. So you actually end up saving water in the long run when you're no longer irrigating, but putting houses and other development on that property. So that has allowed the aquifer, when Heidi talked about the aquifer actually coming up in the Marana area, it's because of that, right? We're using less water for a number of reasons, because of low flow toilets and showers and all of that thing, but also because you're irrigating less because there's houses on that, and houses use about a third or less, a quarter of the amount of water. So we're going to move to transportation here because this went much longer than I anticipated it would, and we wanted to get to some questions. So Fausto, kind of along the same lines that we were talking about with Heidi, what are we doing to prepare? Because I know that Marana residents don't like sitting at a light for longer than one phase of the light, and I'm one of those people. So what are we doing to make sure that Terry doesn't have to sit at a light longer than one phase of the light?
Yeah, he's not kidding. I've heard it several times. So, as Heidi alluded to, and as Jason mentioned, when a development comes in, if we're talking about new development and growth, as these projects go through the process, looking at their impacts on the transportation network is also part of that. They do what's called a transportation impact analysis or a study if it's a small, it's all dependent on the size of the development. And what they're doing is looking at, I think to use Heidi's words, the stresses they put on the network. If they need to do mitigation, are they needing to widen the road? Are they needing to extend the road? Are they impacting an intersection that needs to then be signalized, or is it signalized and they need to do some modifications? So those happen with every single development that comes through the town, and so our traffic team reviews those as they come through.
Can you share with our residents a little bit, because, obviously we have major interchanges through our community. So why hasn't the town just jumped on and fixed all of these interchanges and made them, really nice, like Twin Peaks and Ina? Why haven't you done something about that, Fausto? For the love of everything holy, can you get on that?
Council's not provided an open check. No, the reality is that's the state infrastructure. That is ADOT's jurisdiction. It is our lifeline. Obviously, our residents use it. We all use it. But the reality is the interchanges are under ADOT's governance. We do work with them. We work with them hand in hand, and we've had many of those discussions. And as you see, we're very soon going to start working on what we call the interim improvements to the Tangerine traffic interchange. It's going to have a similar setup to the Cortero interchange that exists. Not ideal, obviously. There's a at-grade crossing with the railroad. However, until the time comes that we can put the funds, we, meaning ADOT, and the town works with them, to put the funds towards that to be able to fully reconstruct it. We are doing what we can to maximize and increase the efficiencies and optimize that particular interchange. And so not to jump too far ahead, but the next portion of the conversation, we're gonna turn into the RTA and those discussions. And I think as it was mentioned before, there were many projects that Marana saw come through the first iteration of that. And there's others that you're gonna see and learn a little bit more about. And I'll be happy to discuss with you a little bit further after this.
Can you share with us a little bit, Fausto, what's it cost to do an interchange, for example?
So
If we all pitch in here today, can we get Tangerine done?
do we have that going around? So Cortero, for instance, we're all very familiar with Cortero. Now that one's gonna actually need to be reconstructed, so obviously that adds to the cost. And there's other nuances to that particular one. It's already in a very populated commerce area, if you will. We're looking at around a $250 million plus figure for that particular interchange, $250 to $300 million. We're also looking at other interchanges. One of our number one focal points right now is the Moore Road traffic interchange. I know most of you are probably sitting here saying, wait, Moore Road, what's going on there? There's quite a bit of development that's currently underway, and I think most of you noticed there's houses going up on the east side of I-10 now in some new different areas. And there's roadways being connected. You're probably familiar with Clark Farms has now been extended, and it's gonna go up towards that area. Eventually, that's all gonna connect right there, and Moore Road is gonna connect onto the interstate system with a new interchange. What that means for us is, as you know, Marana has two other interchanges, both north and south of there. Tangerine being one of them, and the other one being Marana TI. I mentioned this before in the past. If we were to take one of those offline, can you imagine our traffic around North Marana without one of those interchanges? I know they're not ideal right now. So taking a step back, Moore Road TI would be a brand new, fully constructed interchange, and that one's probably at the tune of about 150 million, give or take.
All right, so not cheap.
No.
Yeah, a little bit of money in it. All right, so we're gonna have to move on because we have folks here who want to present about RTA, and I want to get to a few of these questions here. So one of the questions deals with water here, growth and water, and want to know if apartments are part of the equation when it comes to, I think, our costs. So Heidi, if you could.
Yes, absolutely. So every development that comes in, whether it's an apartment, a McDonald's, a house, all that is taken into consideration when we look at capacities related to our water supply and as it relates to our DAWs.
And that's different than, we're different than some other jurisdictions who don't necessarily count apartment complexes. Is that accurate or no?
I don't think that's.
I have no idea what I'm talking about.
We have to count everybody.
All right, so next one here. I heard that new homes are limited due to, I'm gonna have to put my glasses on. That's not happening. Yeah, so limited due to limited water. I heard that people got around this by building rental units instead. So it's kind of the same questions. Kind of the same question. Go ahead.
So, right, all right, good, all right. That question, I think in Pinal County, they ran into that situation. And what it was is our 100-year assured water supply that is assigned to a development is done at the planning phase. In the communities in Pinal where they were getting around it was they weren't planning it. They were doing rental communities as a multi-family development, multiple structures on one lot, one large lot, say 40 acres or whatever. The rental home community that we have in our community on Linda Vista, that is entirely platted. So each one of those is an individual home on an individual lot and thus has an assured water supply that goes with it as well.
This one I don't think we can answer. If we have so much water, why is Sparkletts Water selling recycled water? I have no idea. I didn't know they were doing that. For drinking water.
I was buying the water and I smelled something bad and they didn't taste well and I called them and they said it was recycled water. So why, if we have so much water, why are they selling recycle water for drinking.
I don't know what Sparklets does or why they may or may not do what they do. So that's not a question I can, you'd have to ask Sparklets that. That's not something.
I thought maybe it's because we don't have enough water, enough clean water.
It's a business opportunity. It's a profitable money making. You go buy one of these, you pay probably 20 times what it's worth, easily.
Okay.
All right, this last question, because we need to move on. I tell you, if we didn't get to your question, we will email you with an answer to your question, all right? We have more questions here than what we can answer. But one here I think is a really, really good question that we didn't touch on. Somebody who pays their water bill to City of Tucson, so how does the town of Marana work with the City of Tucson relative to this whole ability to provide water?
Absolutely. So say Dove Mountain, for instance, they have City of Tucson water. So we work with the City of Tucson to get the infrastructure, because they have infrastructure, excuse me, they have infrastructure on that side of the freeway. So we work with them. It's called a wheeling agreement. So we work with them to get our customers in those areas where they have the infrastructure and we don't. We work together in order to get our customers water.
All right, well, I appreciate you guys so much. That went longer than I thought it was going to, but I really appreciate the thoroughness of the answers, and I hope it was helpful here for our residents as well. Yes, give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Which one of them did the best?
Jason.
Oh, and I will tell you that just about everything that was asked here today, and everything that they talked about, we've talked about it on this podcast. So if you're not in tune with the podcast, you can go on there. There's, 80-some episodes that talk about water development, growth, all these kinds of things in much more detail. So if you haven't heard of that, Real Talk with the Town, like I said, my name is Terry, I am your host. So we're going to talk a little bit now, kind of runs congruent with this whole discussion about transportation and growth in Marana. And we've got, where's our RTA folks in the house? Oh, right here in the front row. Right here. We got Steve and Rick, so they're going to come up. And I think, am I going to cover the first couple of slides? What do we got the first couple? On the tail end here. All right. So Steve and Rick from the Regional Transportation Authority. Is this? Just if it's green, it's out.
Okay.
There you go.
Perfect. Can everybody hear me all right? Yeah. So, just want to introduce myself. I'm super happy to be here. My name is Steve Huffman. I'm one of the community affairs folks working for the Pima County Regional Transportation Authority. I'm going to give you a brief presentation on the RTA Next plan, explain to you what's going on in there and how this plan was put together. At the end of this, Terry's actually going to go through, he's got some slides to show you specifically projects that are in the town of Marana. So you can see specifically what's in there. But keep in mind, even when you go through these slides of what's in Marana, one of the central parts of the Pima County Regional Transportation Authority is that we know that we are a community. It's not just Marana, it's not just Oro Valley, it's not just City of Tucson. There are a lot of folks that live here, but that work at Raytheon, for example. And so one of the central premises of the RTA is we are investing in the entire community so that no matter where you work, where you live, where you recreate, you're gonna have good quality roads that are servicing everywhere you need to go. And we don't just fund roads, we also fund bike paths, pedestrian paths, transit services, so it's not just about the roads. I also just wanna, just so you know my background a little bit, in my misspent youth in 1998, I was elected to the Arizona State Legislature. I represented Marana for 8 years up in the Arizona House of Representatives from 1998 to 2006. I actually introduced and passed the bill that created the RTA, which makes me sound like a terrible politician. Work for the people who I passed the bill for, so I'm gonna apologize for that up front. But also, after I left the legislature, I spent 3 years working for the town of Marana. So town of Marana has a special place in my heart. You guys even let me ride in a convertible car in the Founder's Day parade with my kids. And I think the guy was so worried I was gonna wreck his car, like he was irritated that he had to get out. Somebody like me in this car, but Marana has a special place in my heart. So we'll get into this. Doing this right? Okay, so I'm gonna be quick because we want to answer your questions and give Terry time to talk about what's in the plan for Marana. But RTA Next, we passed the bill in 2004. In 2006, the voters approved the first RTA plan for 20 years. That is going to expire in June of 2026. So we need to pass a new plan, which we're affectionately calling RTA Next. The new plan is based on a lot of public input that we've had over the past 6 years to identify priorities for people all across our community. You can expect to see investments in roadway corridors, safety, ADA active transportation, that's the bike paths, sidewalks, things like that. We're investing money in arterial and collector road rehabilitation, so roads that are basically failing that we're gonna come in and reconstruct. We're also investing money in environmental elements of the plan. Those are those wildlife leakages. You can see one right there, the animal overpasses and underpasses. And we get a lot of questions about this sometimes. And I tell people, obviously it's important for the animals, right? But one of the main reasons we have those is because you don't want to be in a 6-car pileup because an animal runs across the road right in front of you. So it's not just for the wildlife, it's for our protection too. So that's really important. And we make significant investments in transit. I know Terry's gonna talk about that, but it's particularly important in some of our smaller communities to make sure that you have those viable bus and transit services to serve those communities. Oop, I went the wrong way. Okay, so RTA, it's gonna help you get to work on time, it's gonna help students and teachers get to school safely, keep people connected to life-saving care. This is really important. You don't always think about this stuff, but man, if you ever call an ambulance and you need to get to the hospital, that first few minutes are absolutely critical. Any time that you can save getting somebody to services like that could be the difference between life and death. So the investments that we make, it's not just getting to work on time or all that stuff. It could have a really huge difference on your life if you have to depend on using the roads to get to a hospital or something like that. Keeping outlying areas connected with essential services. And then job centers. And I want to point this out too, because I hope that Terry and Mr. Woody will agree with me that you don't want to be living in a community that's not investing in their infrastructure. If you're trying to create jobs, if you're trying to expand businesses, if you're trying to attract new businesses to come into your community, if you are on the list of communities that are not investing in their infrastructure, you're gonna have a really hard time when you go to those site selector meetings and you're pitching Marana, if they don't see that we're investing in our community. And we're investing not just in Marana, but all of Pima County. But you cannot compete if you're not investing in our community. And those, the creation of those job centers is absolutely, and all you have to do is look at Twin Peaks right here in Marana and see all the investments that have gone into that area as a direct result of those investments in transportation infrastructure. So one of the questions people ask us all the time is, why do we need the RTA? Don't we already have enough money? And we've got a couple slides to talk about this, but we need to make sure that everybody understands we do have a gas tax. We do get some money from that. We will show you where we get money from the federal government, the state government. But keep in mind the gas tax, we got two problems with that. Number one, we haven't increased it in Arizona in almost 30 years now. Not even for inflation. But the other thing is, and I always say the good and bad news about this, because of electric vehicles and more fuel efficient vehicles, that's really good that we have more fuel efficient vehicles. But we're not raising nearly the amount of money that we need to pay for our infrastructure from old funding sources like gas taxes. So that's why the RTA is really important. Just so you understand a little bit about RTA, I mentioned that we passed the bill in 2004 to create it. We are technically the Pima County Regional Transportation Authority, but understand that we are not at all part of the Pima County government. We are an independent taxing district that was created by the state legislature. Our board of directors is made up of every jurisdiction in Pima County. All the cities and towns are on our board of directors, including the two tribal nations. And we also have a representative from Arizona Department of Transportation. But we are not part of any government, any local government, but every local government is part of our board and helping make decisions about how the RTA functions. This slide, I always tell people, if you get nothing out of this presentation, this is probably the most important slide. If you look at the RTA, this is funding for transportation investments in Pima County on an annual basis. You can see we get about $126 million a year from the voter-approved half-cent sales tax, which goes to pay for the RTA. And by the way, that is the only funding source available for the RTA. If you pass the plan without a funding source, the plan's not going to get implemented. And the only source of funding we have is the half-cent sales tax. So when you go to the ballot, you're going to see two questions. One is the plan. The other is the half-cent sales tax to pay for it. And that's the only funding source we have. But you can see here, we have about $50 million a year that comes in from state and federal funding sources. The RTA, as I mentioned before, about 126. So about 2/3 of all the money we have available for transportation investments comes from that voter-approved half-cent sales tax and the voter-approved plan. So you can imagine if you were trying to put your own household budget together and you had to pay the exact same bills that you have right now, but you lost 2/3 of your income overnight. That's the situation that we're looking at once the current RTA expires in 2026. If we don't reauthorize the plan and the half-cent sales tax to pay for it, we lose that 2/3 of the funding that we currently have available for transportation infrastructure improvements in our community. I'm always happy when these slides that are automated work because I never know if they're on the ground. So just a little bit of the history of the RTA that was passed in 2006. Since the voters approved the first plan, we've completed more than 1,000 improvements in our community through the RTA. We invested $1.6 billion in transportation improvements in our region, but as a result of that investment, we are also able to leverage about $3 billion in public-private investments. So it's not just the sales tax that we collect for the transportation improvements, but it's all the jobs and economic activity and the private investment that comes along in addition to that money. And we actually commissioned an economic impact study, and we determined that from the first RTA, there were 40,000 permanent jobs that were created as a direct result of the transportation investments that we made in our community. We believe that with the passage of RTA Next, you're going to see an additional 88,000 jobs created over the next, it's 25 years that was in that study. And we expect a total economic impact of $3.7 billion of investment in our community. Without the passage of the RTA, we expect the exact opposite. If we're not investing and the word gets out that we're not investing in our community, you can expect to see people not relocating here, not expanding here, actually relocating to other communities. And we expect to see a $3.5 billion economic loss by not continuing to invest in our infrastructure. Without RTA, the first thing you would see is there would be a significant decrease in the availability of bus and transit services in our community. That would impact people's ability to get to healthcare providers. Traffic congestion is going to get worse. Commute times will get worse. And it would be particularly felt in smaller communities like Marana. And I'm not saying Marana is a small community, but smaller communities would feel this more directly and more immediately. Again, you can see here's just some examples of services that are provided by the RTA. You got obviously road improvements, paratransit, the modern streetcar downtown, pedestrian and bikeways, sidewalks. We also invest a lot of money in safety and intersection improvements to make sure traffic flows faster and better and safer. And that's a significant part of what we do too. It's not just building the roads, it's making sure that the timing's right on intersections and traffic lights and all that stuff. I'm happy to take any questions. I know Terry's gonna come up here, but we have spent the last 6 years working with citizens advisory committees, conducting surveys, having public open houses, having meetings like this, giving surveys to people, asking for your feedback. So I want to make sure that you understand that the RTA Next plan is not my plan, it's not Rick's plan, it's not our plan. It is based on extensive public service input from your mayors. Terry has been involved with some of the committees that have put this together. So there's a lot of feedback that goes into this. I just want to show you a couple slides, and we got to work on the timing of this, but I want you, we're going to get this where you don't have a seizure from looking at the flash. But what this map is showing you is you can see the green is the projects that were done, and these are just the road projects, not the sidewalks or anything else like that, right? But the green is the road projects that were done through the first plan passed in 2006. The blue are the road projects that are proposed in the RTA Next. So if you close one eye and when you see them both lit up at the same time, you can see the footprint that we've had on this community that we plan on having. It's a significant impact on the community all across Pima County, from the very tippy top of Marana down to Sahuarita. We've got projects that we've invested in and will invest in after RTA Next. So one of the things that I want to make sure, because you might have read stuff in the paper, and Terry, I'm almost there.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
So one of the lessons from the first RTA, because that was the first time we'd done anything like this back in 2006. We've had a few projects that were part of the original RTA that are going to be completed in the RTA Next. One of the lessons learned from this is that we've been really deliberately careful about coming up with realistic revenue projections for how much money we have available for road projects. It's already been mentioned here that town went through the same issues, but when we put together the first RTA plan, we didn't anticipate the recession of 2008. We didn't anticipate going through a pandemic. We didn't anticipate inflation and how that impacted the cost of road projects. So we've tried to do a really good job with RTA Next to make sure that our numbers are spot on for what kind of funds we think are available for RTA Next projects to make sure we don't do that. The RTA, I don't know if you guys know this, but we get audited every 5 years by the state, by the Auditor General of the state, to make sure that we're following the law and doing what we promised the voters. But we also have a Citizens Accountability Committee of just regular people that meet on a regular basis. They issue an annual report telling us whether we're doing our job or not doing our job. So we have multiple levels of accountability to make sure that the RTA is delivering what we promised the voters. And we also have extensive outreach to the community to find out what their priorities are, what they want us to do in the RTA Next plan. And ultimately, you guys get to go to the ballot in March, and you guys get to tell us whether you like the plan or don't like the plan. But, and I'm gonna end on this, but I want you to understand how special that is, because Maricopa County has a regional transportation authority also. And Maricopa County, when they put together their plan, they have to go to the legislature and ask the legislature to approve their plan before they even get to send it to the ballot. When I introduced that bill in 2004, we said we're not doing that. And it was actually lucky because Maricopa County couldn't pass their plan without our votes. So our bill said we didn't have to go to the legislature. So we just get to set priorities ourselves as a community. You guys get to vote for the plan. You guys get to tell us what you want. We don't have to go to the legislature. We don't have to ask the legislature to approve our plan. Maricopa County has to go through that process. So we get to decide what our community looks like for the next 20 years ourselves as neighbors, as neighboring communities. And I think that's important and special. So, okay, I'm really good. This is my last slide. So just, but this is important because I want you to understand this. We are, I told you the only funding source we have available is a half-cent sales tax, right? That's important because the other way we could fund all these transportation improvements is through your property taxes. We could put something on the ballot, a bond election, and you guys can vote for it just the same as you do with the RTA. The difference is, if you did a bond election, only businesses and homeowners in the community will be paying for our roads. With the sales tax, everybody that uses the roads pays for our roads, including winter visitors, tourists, people that are just passing through. So everybody pays for the roads. We don't just put the burden on homeowners and businesses in this community to pay for the roads that everybody uses. Okay, we're just going to move on here. So I'm going to turn this over to Terry. I'll give this to you. But I would be happy to answer any questions you have. We've got a list up front of all the RTA Next projects. Terry's got a presentation to give you of the RTA.
If you didn't get one of these, this is a list of all the projects in the RTA Next. If you didn't get one of these, I think we have some more up here that we can maybe grab on your way out.
But I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody want to take a picture of that so you can, nobody's getting their phones out, so it's not. All right, so I'm going to really quickly just kind of cover projects that happened in Marana from the RTA, from the first RTA, projects that have been completed. You got the Twin Peaks interchange as well as Twin Peaks Road that goes from Twin Peaks and I-10 all the way up into Dove Mountain. Beautiful roadway that connects that part of our community to the freeway. You got the Ina Road railroad crossing and interchange. That was painful for a couple of years, but we got it done, and now it's a beautiful interchange. Very easy. You don't have to wait for trains. Very safe. Wonderful project there. Community Manana roadway widening. That's essentially the Twin Peaks all the way up. And then Tangerine Road widening, which is still ongoing. And that was widened all the way from Oracle Road, leading all the way to Dove Mountain. And now we're doing phase 2A, which is from the I-10 up to the water tank, past Breakers Road. And then 2B, or not 2B, or it will be. It will be. It will be. And that's going to go from there up to Dove Mountain. So those are projects that happened right here in Marana as a result of the RTA, and if we didn't have the RTA, those projects would not have happened. This is just kind of a breakdown of the investment for each of the RTA Next projects. You'll see the Moore Road 910, which you heard Fausto talk about. We think that that one is very, very important for us. Because at the point that we decide we need to do a grade separated interchange at Tangerine, and we have to shut that interchange down to do it, you've got nobody to get east to west. So Moore Road interchange becomes a very crucial project for us, and that will be the first one out of the gate for us, so that we make sure we can get people around up here in North Marana where they need to get. Then you got Cortero Road. Everybody's familiar with that one. You see the price tag there. It's a lot of money. I would write a check, but I'm a little late. So then you got Ina Road. We're going to do a widening project there. So that'll end up being 6 lanes from I-10 to the Marana boundaries. It's essentially Camino de la Tierra. So that'll add a lot more capacity there on Ina Road. That gets pretty congested at times, and we're going to do a really nice multi-use path on one side of the road for biking and walking and things of that nature. Of course, you got safety and active transportation improvements and pavement rehabilitation. There's also a couple of other projects. I think those are on here. I'm going to go through this super quickly here. I've already talked about these. What we're doing with them. So I'm just going to jump through because we're running long. These are 2 other projects that, although most of it's not in Marana, it has a significant impact on Marana. Thornydale Road, everybody's familiar with Thornydale. That's 2 lanes south of Tangerine all the way down to Cortero. A little bit difficult getting north and south on that when traffic gets heavy. So that's going to be widened to 4 lanes. That's a great addition for Northwest Marana. Or northeast Marana. Silver Bell Road, of course, if you've driven Silver Bell up in Marana, it's a 4-lane divided roadway. It's really beautiful, easy to get up and down until you get to Ina, and then it narrows down to 2 lanes. That's going to be widened from Ina all the way down to, it says it right on there, Camino del Cerro, right? So 4 lanes with bike paths and sidewalks and all of those kinds of things. So again, not directly in Marana, but again, I love what Steve talked about, the fact that the RTA Next is not just about a specific project in a specific neighborhood, it's about the collective and how it affects transportation for everybody across the entire county, whether you bike, whether you walk, whether you ride the bus, whether you drive a car, whatever the case may be. So that, I think, in a nutshell, is what we have on RTA Next. So, do we have time for a few questions? Do we have any questions?
Nobody submitted a card.
Nobody submitted any questions. Does anybody have a real quick question? Yeah, you did an awesome job. No questions, yes, ma'am.
The Moore Road interchange.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. On the east side, call it east,
Yep.
okay. Where is it actually going to go once you get off the interchange? How's it gonna move east? Because there's nothing there right now.
Correct, we'll have to build that. All of that will have to be
That
built.
interchange.
Correct.
It's gonna go somewhere and connect what, eventually to Tangerine?
Eventually, it'll connect to Moore Road in Dove Mountain.
Okay,
So Moore Road in Dove Mountain, where it terminates
right.
right now, where the Tortolita Preserve is.
right.
That will come all the way
And you're
through and
working on
eventually
that.
tie into I-10 and
And
Moore
you're
Road.
doing the traffic light and everything over there to kind of anticipate that. But that's quite a project, right?
That's a big project, yeah.
And that's all part of this.
That's why Steve would say we need RTA Next.
Oh,
Am I right, Steve?
I would vote for it many times if I could, but the point is, that 90 million is gonna take, I have to get out of wherever I live, and it's very difficult these days.
Mhm.
Okay, in San Lucas. So this would take us as an alternative to having to go down to Tangerine.
Yes, it would. So you would catch it off Adonis,
Yes.
right? Because Moore
Yeah,
Road
right.
would come down,
Okay,
land, go through
Adonis.
Adonis, a
Okay.
traffic light there,
thank you.
and continue on.
That's what I wanted to know.
Real quick, any other questions?
On the slide before you had at the bottom, 91.3 million RTA Next equals ADOT for that. What does that mean? I mean, how do you get from that to that? 486 million.
Sets of numbers.
So 91.3 million invested from RTA, but we leverage money from ADOT, from the Arizona Department of Transportation. So they have funding that they have every year that they put toward their infrastructure. So when we come to the table with some money, they come to the table with a whole bunch more, right? So it's skin in the game kind of thing, if that makes sense. All right, and one more question real quick. Yes, sir.
Once all we hear about a train between Tucson and Phoenix, we'll have a station in Marana.
I don't even know how long before we see a train from here to Phoenix. But I know the good mayor will do everything he can to make sure that there's a stop in the town of Marana. And I'll take one more because I feel bad. You looked like you so wanted to ask a question.
Well, I was just wondering, how people, you said the funding is basically dependent on a vote. And is there any alternative plan for funding or how do you do outreach so that people know, more people in this room know to vote, for this?
That's a great question. I don't know if everybody heard it, but if there's no other funding source, how are we getting the word out to make sure that people vote for this, right? And it's not our job to tell people to vote for it against it. It's our job to tell people this is the reality. If you don't want those things, don't vote for them. But if you want those things, you got to vote for them. So it's meetings just like this, and there's going to be a whole bunch of them. There's also an entire team, I don't know, like 8-10 people that work for the RTA, and that is their sole job for the next 6 months, whatever it is till March, to make sure that the word gets out there to people to ensure that they understand what's at stake, what their plan is and what's at stake. Sure.
Can I just say, if you are part of any group, organization, I've spoke to Marana Rotary Clubs, I've spoken to church groups, there is no group too big or too small. So if you're part of any organization, neighborhood association, you have any sort of meetings going on, reach out. We're going to be sending out emails to all your council members, asking them who we should reach out to, but reach out to Terry, call me. You can get on our website, but we will be anywhere where there's more than 2 people to talk to them about this. It's really important we get the word out.
And Terry, it's all or nothing, folks. We don't have a plan B.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So, and we're going to talk about it on the podcast, and that has like millions and millions of listeners. All right, so we're going to get into our last topic. It has gone longer than we anticipated. I hope it's been helpful. I've got 2 people here who are going to kind of talk about data centers. And the whole reason we're talking about this is because it's a pretty hot topic right now, not only here in Pima County, but across the nation. And so the town has done a lot of prep work in the last couple of years because we anticipated that we would have people coming being interested. And that is indeed the fact, the reality. So Jason here, Development Services Director, and who you haven't met over here yet is Jane Fairall, our amazing town attorney. And they are going to kind of walk you through this. And the reason that they're doing it is because they're the ones that crafted an ordinance that we currently have. And I'm going to brag on the town of Marana and our staff for a minute. We are the only jurisdiction in the state that I'm aware of that actually in advance put an ordinance in place. And I'm going to let them talk about that, but they did a yeoman's job of putting it together, a lot of work. It took them about a year, quite frankly, and they learned a lot. I joke that I bequeathed on both of them a PhD in data centerology. So when they're done, you tell me whether or not that's true or not.
Thanks, Terry. So we'll jump right into this and kind of walk through things. Jane and I will be tag teaming here. Not standing this far apart from her. She's one of my favorite co-workers, but for ease of being able to read slides. So the outline of the presentation, we want to touch on why Arizona, why are data centers looking at the state of Arizona. The process we undertook in going through this, the ordinance, a high-level overview of what that ordinance currently requires of an application. We'll talk about water, we'll talk about power a little bit, and potentially some of the impacts to the region and discussions. So this is the top 10 regions within the country as far as data center attractions. Phoenix is the #2 region in the entire country as far as density of data centers throughout the entire country. So North Virginia, I don't think it's a surprise to many. When you think about what's over in North Virginia, it's a lot of military operations, government operations. So that's the data center capital of the world, we jokingly say.
Is this working? Okay. So why Arizona? The state of Arizona, the state legislature, back in 2013, passed some statutes that provide tax incentives to data centers. This kind of blurb here that we have on the slide describes that the computer data center equipment is exempt from sales tax and from use tax at the state level, so state of Arizona, county level, and at the local level. So they will not pay, any data center developer coming to the state of Arizona will not pay sales tax or use tax on the actual equipment that goes into the data centers. So that was a decision made by the state to incentivize that industry to come to the state of Arizona. We have the website down there at the bottom is theirs, acommerce.com. They have many incentive programs, but you can find more details about their computer data center program on their website. And I think we'll have our slides up on our website so that you can go there if you want to find that site. So that's the reason why Arizona. And when we first started getting interest from data center developers coming into the town of Marana, that was one of the first things they said to us of why they were coming here is because of the state incentives.
So why do we create a new ordinance? Very first point there is the town did not have a defined use for a data center. And what we learned, a lot of interest started popping up around the region throughout the state. We had seen a lot of the data centers that were going up in the Phoenix Valley area. One of the things when we reached out and did our research there was a lot of the municipalities there classified data centers as indoor self-storage. Going back to my point of general zoning categories and all that, indoor self-storage is pretty general, pretty vague. And when you think about it from a data center, it's a bunch of computer equipment that's stored within a building. There's not a lot of jobs that are created there. It's just kind of a storage facility. But they made that determination. And indoor self-storage in many communities is a permitted, meaning allowed use in either a commercial or light industrial zoning district. So think about where those exist within a community and you can just, they basically had free reign to go. So we wanted to get in front of that and identify a specific provision that identified data centers and defined their uses. Data centers, they're evolving, they're a necessity. They're going to have to be located based upon technology, AI, all that stuff that is continuing to advance in the world. For research, what we did is Jane became an expert in almost everything out in the West Virginia area.
As Jason mentioned, Northern Virginia on that other slide is number one in the country in data center density. And so they were actually kind of redoing a lot of their ordinances. They had already been through the ringer, so to speak, and found things that didn't work in their original ordinances that they passed 10, 20 years ago. And they were going through the process of rewriting their ordinances. Hiring consultants to review their ordinances, to see what worked, to see what didn't work. And so we were able to find a lot, just a treasure trove of information from the Virginia area that we were able to use to help us craft our ordinance.
Yeah, as part of that, we also did some in-person research. Steve Cheslak, one of our former planning managers, and myself, we went up and we met with staff at the different municipalities up in the Phoenix Valley area to learn from them. If you could do it all over, what would you do? What are the things we should be aware of as far as what's come with these types of uses? What things should we be looking at? What things can we regulate? What things can we not regulate? All of that. From there, we drafted the first round of the ordinance, did a council study session back in May of '24, had the initial conversation with them. talked through a number of different points, got their feedback. From there, we made some adjustments to the ordinance. We put it out for about 45 days to accept public feedback and comment. Took those comments, made further clarifications and adjustments to it before ultimately taking it through the process to get a formal adoption by council. In the end, council adopted the final ordinance in December of 2024. So it's been on the books for almost a year now. Well, yeah, almost a year now.
So when we were looking at the ordinance, the overriding objective was not to be in favor of data centers or against data centers, but to put the town and the town citizens in the best possible position when application came, because we knew we were going to get some applications. It's a growing industry, and with AI and cloud computing and cloud storage, it's coming. So these 5 bullets there on the slide were the overriding objectives that we were looking at, that we wanted to make sure that we were addressing in our ordinance. Number 1, location. If we allow data centers in the town, where should they be allowed to go? What's the best place for them? Jason kind of alluded to it, and I think we'll get into it in future slides, and also in the previous presentation about zoning entitlements. And if you look at our zoning code online on our website, you'll see that we have a use matrix table that lists our zone districts and what uses are allowed in those districts. And if you say it's an allowed use, then it's permitted. And there's not public hearings, there's not public comment taken or those kinds of things once something is slated as a permitted use in any particular zone. So we went in a different direction when it comes to data centers, and Jason will talk about that in a minute. But that was a key concern. Where should they go if they're allowed in the town of Marana? Water, obviously, was a concern. They use water as a lot of the time, not always, but water cooling. Cooling for or water for the cooling systems for the equipment that's housed in the data centers. Power, the electricity, they are high users of electricity, so that was of concern to us to address. Noise, that was something that we heard as we talked to people in person and on our online research as well. And a lot of times it was not necessarily that there's a high decibel level that comes along with the data centers, but the frequency that they operate at and just kind of the constancy of that noise. So we wanted to make sure that we were addressing that as well. And then the appearance. What we were trying to avoid was just a big bright white box in the desert. We wanted it to be something that looked better than that. So those were our main objectives.
So getting into the ordinance, and Jane talked about this a little bit, but we jokingly refer to this as a very specific plan. We have a specific plan zoning category that exists in our current code, which if you're in the Dove Mountain community, if you're in the Gladden Farms community, Saguaro Bloom, those are examples of specific plan zoning to create those neighborhoods. So when we got into this, we said, it's a very specific plan. And part of that is the level of detail that's required. So first things we did was we started by defining a data center use. Then we looked at principal use standards and accessory use standards. So a principal use standard is if that is the primary use of the property is a data center, we wanted specific regulations for that. An accessory use would be, an example would be a hospital. Say a hospital has their large campus, but then they have a data center building as part of that. That's an accessory to the hospital being the primary use. Then we looked at the design standards, both of not only the building, but the actual site. So now we're looking at separations between uses, we're looking at landscaping requirements, we're looking at access, security, all of that.
So as Jason mentioned, we didn't have a definition for data center in our code, and we've learned from others' mistakes, I guess, that they had defined it as indoor storage or a storage facility, and we knew that that wasn't the correct way to define it. So this was very foundational to the ordinance, and it actually took a long time for us to find the definition that we were comfortable with. And it's a facility used primarily for the storage, management, processing, and transmission of digital data, which houses computers or network equipment systems, servers, appliances, and other associated components related to digital data operations. It includes things like cryptocurrency mining in the ordinance, in the definition, and weather modeling. And we wanted it to be very broad because all of these types of things that we've identified here in this definition have the same or a similar impact on a community. And that was the overriding thing that we were looking at, is how is this going to impact the community of Marana and its citizens? So that it took us a while to get there, but we're pretty happy and comfortable with what we ended up with.
Yeah, we probably took like 7-8 runs at it. So getting into some of the criteria. So when an application comes in for consideration of a data center, the specific plan requires that one, they have to have a baseline noise study that's completed. That is of the proposed site and what exists out there today.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think could we start by saying that a specific land is a rezoning? That it kind of, before we get into the requirements, but some people might not understand what that means.
Yeah, so the rezoning process, specific plan requires a rezoning of the property. So identified site comes in, they're requesting a rezoning of the property. We then send out notices to all properties within 300 feet of the subject site. We also post the site with signage out there. We post it on the town website, and we also advertise in the newspaper as far as public hearing dates. They're required to go before Plan Commission first and to discuss the application, and then they're also, Plan Commission is a recommending body that then forwards to the town council. Town council is ultimately the one that has the full discretion to either approve, deny, or approve with conditions any rezoning process. You get it all?
Thank you.
Okay. Check the legal box. Okay. So once again, going into the application, what they are required to is part of that application. So I send you out a notice. You're within 300 feet of a subject property for rezoning. That is going to say we have an application with the following materials that you are able to contact us and ask to review those materials or to obtain a copy of those. You know, you can get it, and it included within that will be a baseline noise study. They'll have to also include where they intend to receive their electric power and a documentation from the utility provider that says there is sufficient power to not only serve that development, but also future needs for that site. The intended source of water for the development and documentation from the water provider that says they have sufficient water to provide to serve that. There is a footnote there, put it in blue because we love it, that color for water. But there is specific language within the ordinance that says the town of Marana water will not be used for cooling. So our potable, our drinking water will not be used to serve data center development for their cooling system. Now, as part of a data center operation, they do have office uses, bathroom uses, things of that nature. Obviously, we will provide water for those type of services, but for the cooling services, we will not allow for Marana water to be used for that. And then there is a section at the bottom there that talks about if they're not able to meet any of the criteria within the ordinance that's required, they are to specifically state why they are not able to and explain the steps that they plan to take to remedy that as part of the application. Uh-oh. Got the black screen of death.
Does that, and I said,
Did you not set the timer long enough? Oh, there we go. We're back on. Good job.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the building, some of the building design standards, and what I want to emphasize is that these slides are kind of scratching the surface. There's actually a lot more in the actual code provisions in the ordinance regarding data centers and the regulation of data centers. So if you are interested, I would encourage you to go to our website. And we have the ordinance on the website that was, the document that was approved by council. And we also have our town code on the website, and it'll show you where it's integrated into the town code. So these slides are a summary and kind of, like I said, scratching the surface because there's even more in the code. The building design standards, this gets to the appearance where we were trying to make sure that we didn't have ugly boxes in our beautiful desert. And we saw a lot of, in our research, a lot of data center campuses that were actually quite nice. And that's what we were trying to emulate and kind of trying to require the appropriate architectural elements to get that. I won't read every bullet point, but we wanted to avoid high contrast colors, to have a neutral color palette and colors that are consistent with the environment, the surrounding environment, that aren't going to stick out like a sore thumb. Colors are not to be advertisements or billboards for whatever the business is that's in the data center. We wanted to make sure that building materials or building exteriors use materials with texture and color, and that there are changes in the building, the massing of the building and offsets and that sort of thing. We learned a new word, or it was a new word for me, called fenestration, which is the arrangement of buildings, doors and windows on a building. And we require a certain percentage of windows, doors, those kinds of things on the building to make it an inviting building, an inviting campus. We require that they emphasize the pedestrian experience, and that all buildings include at least 5 of these architectural features that are listed on the bottom of the slide there. But the point being that have the ability to look at renderings and see what they're proposing and make sure that we get something that's going to be nice for the community.
So Jane talked about the building design. Like I said earlier, we also wanted to talk about site design and layout. The first bullet point there talks about if a proposed site is adjacent to planned or zoned for residential land use, there is a 400-foot separation requirement from the data center use. If it's adjacent to property that is zoned for any use other than residential or industrial, primarily you're talking commercial, it's a 100-foot separation there. We also talk about generators. These things are, looking for redundancy in all of their utility services, and obviously generators provide that backup for emergency services, for outages or things of that nature. We want the latest and greatest generators to be used in all of these, and that is because of the energy efficiencies, the noise reductions, things of that nature.
The emissions as well. We require the Tier 4 or newer generators, which are the lower emissions generating generators.
We also specifically state that except for testing, commission activities, generator use is limited to specifically backup or emergency use only, and that the testing of those generators can only be conducted during the weekdays between 8 and 5. Don't need you doing it on the weekend, or I wouldn't want them doing it late at night,
So water is obviously a huge concern here in the desert, and these are or can be high users of water for their cooling purposes. There are also data centers that are moving away from water cooling and more towards air cooling. So it could be either or, but For those that would use water cooling, we have stated in our ordinance in the blue, on the slide that Jason showed you, we're not gonna allow you to use potable drinking water in the cooling system in the data center if you have one that's approved in the town of Marana. We will require as part of the application process, and this was on the previous slide as well, that an estimate of your annual water consumption for the site, the intended source of water for the development, and documentation from the water provider affirming sufficient water resources exist to serve the site. And if we could go to the next slide. This was provided by our water department, thank you. So this shows an average annual water use per acre per sector. And this is another important piece of the puzzle for the town of Marana is that we do have the irrigation district in the town of Marana. And it's serving the farms in the town of Marana. And the average annual water use for agricultural uses is 3.5 acre feet per year. And you can see that goes down for residential 2.4 to commercial 1.2 into industrial 1.2, and those are averages. But the reality of the situation is that a data center would use less of the water than farming does, than the agricultural use does. And because we aren't going to provide potable water, they would have to go somewhere where there is another viable water source. So there's that potential in the town of Marana in the areas where the irrigation district service area is located.
So, is Terry here to be in front of me for this? I'm right here. It's the electric slide.
Yes.
All right, so as we talked about, once again, from a power side, as part of the application, they will also have to identify the intended source of electrical power and documentation from the provider that says that there is sufficient supply there to support the proposed development, and as well cover any future expansions or use of their facility. With that, Joe with TEP Sikowski is here. And Jane, would you mind handing him the microphone? As part of this, we just wanted to ask Joe a couple of common questions that we've been hearing out there recently with all the data center talk. So let's see, the first one I have is, can TEP provide the power needed for data centers?
Thank you for that, but first I'll just thank you for the opportunity to talk. Joe Salkaskel from Tucson Electric Power. It is our responsibility as the energy provider, the sole energy provider in areas that we serve, to address the needs of new businesses, new customers that come in. And so we're committed to doing that. We're committed to finding ways to serve the requests that come in. We have seen a lot of requests from potential new users in our service area. And so it is our responsibility to do the studies, do the research work, and ultimately do the planning that would be required to develop resources to serve new customers that have load that exceeds our
Joe, could you just up the volume a little bit?
Oh, thank you. I apologize for that. Just don't make me do the electric slide. I was, the short of it is that we do not currently have all the energy that would be required to support all of the interest that we have received from prospective customers. And it's our responsibility to go out and do the studies and find ways to do what we can when we can.
One of the other things that we've heard out there, Joe, is what type of impact would a potential data center have on the existing residents of the community? Meaning, will the residents' rates be going up because a data center has demanded an increased use within the region?
That's a good question. And the short answer to the last question you asked is no. We would expect that a customer like a data center would have a beneficial effect for other customers because of for rates. It would actually support long-term affordability because of the way these facilities use energy. They use energy consistently at high levels, which means they're providing revenue around the clock that helps pay for the system that we develop to serve all customers in a community. Our grid has a lot of capacity in the off hours. We build our system to a level that allows us to support reliability during the highest hour of demand on the hottest day of summer. A data center, if they're using energy, and that's the way people like us use power, is, you know, our power ramps up when it's really hot, ramps down overnight. A data center is using power at consistent levels around the clock, and that usage through our rates provides revenue that ultimately offsets our need for revenue from other customers. So when we go in, we submit a rate request. If we have a customer like a data center on the system, that actually supports lower rates for other customers.
Thank you, Joe. One last one. So you were talking about kind of your review or TEP's review, not your review, Joe specifically, but TEP's review. So a data center comes in and has an interest of potentially locating within your service area. What does a request from a data center look like, and what is the assessment that TEP goes through to ultimately make a determination for them?
So it's really important to us to make sure that new customers added to our system don't compromise reliability for our existing customers, that we can serve them reliably. And to determine that, we have to conduct a series of studies. We are looking into, we get information from these prospective customers about the nature of their operations. What's their usage going to look like? Where are they located? Then we do a system impact study and a facility study to determine how that load is, and that's how we describe consumption at high levels. We sometimes call it load. But we essentially evaluate how the usage is going to affect our system and what improvements we might need to make, if any, to provide service reliably to a new customer with high load in ways that support reliability for others. We also, in addition to that, we're also looking into our energy resources of generating the power that these customers need. So making sure that we're doing a system resource study. We do this individually when needed for prospective projects, but we also every few years do an integrated resource plan that addresses expectations for the entire community. And we're starting that process right now, and it's likely that we're going to do a resource evaluation that supports some of the larger projects that we're getting asked about right now. And one final thing to point out is that the prospective customers pay for these studies upfront, or at least they pay for them completely to make sure that those costs aren't passed along to anybody else.
Thank you very much, sir. Sure. With that, like Jane had said earlier, what we presented was high level. This is just scratching the surface. If anyone is interested in receiving a copy of the full data center ordinance, you can get it off the town website. You can contact me directly. I'll email it to you. Jane would do the same as well. So we're happy to go into any further detail on things at a later date.
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
I have some questions.
I don't have.
Well, I like this one. Is there a minimum size? Will I be prohibited from mining cryptocurrency in my shed in the backyard? I don't know the answer to that. I didn't know you could mine cryptocurrency in your backyard. But if you can, more power to you. All right. With restrictions on water for data center use, what alternative cooling materials might be used, and how might those be regulated?
Well, I think the restriction is on the use of potable water from the Marana Water Department, but there could be other water sources that they could use, a data center that's approved could use, including water from the irrigation district, as I mentioned earlier. Or there is the other option of air cooling, which it still uses some water, but it uses much less water and is more based on electricity than water.
And that was another question here about where will the water come from for cooling? If it doesn't come from us, irrigation district would be probably the most likely source for that water. And somebody asked how much water is available through the irrigation district. I have an expert there over here on that. And our mayor is also a farmer, so he's very familiar with the irrigation water available. So a lot. I mean, it is an enormous amount. Just think about all the fields that have been irrigated throughout the decades and even century, right? And these data centers use about half the amount of water on the state square footage.
So the irrigation district is just over 100 years old in this area. And we've been pumping, the irrigation district has been pumping about 40,000 acre feet a year for the last 100 years without any problems whatsoever. So to say that the water is available from the irrigation district is a pretty easy ask.
Good. And then, thank you, Mayor, I appreciate that. Helps to have experts in the audience. Is a requirement to install solar panels to reduce the need for TEP?
We do not currently have that included in the ordinance. There's no requirement for solar panels or solar power to be used at a site.
All right, so we're gonna wrap things up here, and I hope that this was helpful. I will tell you that certainly, because data centers are such a hot topic, getting out in front of our residents was very important to us. And I want to compliment you all, because quite frankly, some of the meetings that have occurred, not only locally, but in other places have been, well, let's just say, very spirited. And you guys have been absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate the questions that you have. Yes, sir, looks like you have one more question.
Yeah, it seems like you've assumed that we're going to have a center.
Okay.
Will the residents of Marana have an opportunity to express their opposition to having a center in Marana at all?
Great questions. Kind of two questions there. One, we're assuming that we're going to have one. That I don't think that that's a safe assumption. So here's what I can say, and I'm quoting the mayor here. I don't know verbatim, but very closely. When our council considers whether or not we're going to have data centers in our community, we're going to do so based on what's in the best interest of our residents. And if it's not good for Marana, we're not going to do it. And that's probably pretty close to a quote. If it's good for Marana, though, we're going to do it. Are people going to have an opportunity to voice opposition? Absolutely. The processes that Jason talked about, that Jane talked about, everything that they have to go through, a specific plan, the rezoning process, going to the planning commission, coming before the council, all of those things will give ample opportunity for people to express any concerns they might have. I will say, I think, kudos to staff for thinking ahead, for putting an ordinance in place, for having the conversations, and for, quite frankly, putting our mayor and our council in a position, they're in the driver's seat. They can say, we're having one data center. They can say, we're having no data centers. They can say, we're having one at the Pinell County line, or they can say, we're having one at the Marana interchange. But they don't have to put them next to homes, and they don't have to put them in places where they don't make sense for our town. And I think that forethought, that planning, I think is going to serve us really well, whether we do them or whether we don't do them.
What are the big benefits for us to have their centers here?
Sure.
He mentioned lower rates for electricity, but I would assume that it should be more than that.
Sure.
And who gets the best benefits? Who gets the most? Them or us?
Yeah. I wouldn't know how to quantify that. I will
Because
say,
somebody mentioned that should be part of the.
yeah, there is an economic analysis that's done, and we can certainly share information when we do.
Because I don't think we just open to let them do it here if it doesn't bring any benefits to us.
Right. So let me answer that for you, if I can. So obviously, we're not gonna do it if there's not a positive impact for our community. So we're gonna do an economic analysis, and we're gonna look at what the benefits are for the town specifically, based on every single project that comes before us. We're not just gonna say, this data center, we're taking one data center and that's the one we're taking, and we're not taking. Each one is gonna have to come in and apply and show us what they're bringing to the table. There are taxes that come with that. There's property tax, significant property tax. If you're talking about projects that are in the billions of dollars to construct, there's construction sales tax that come with that in the hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars that come with that. Millions of dollars every year that come from taxes related to the utility, because the town has a 4-cent utility tax, and they use a lot of electricity. So there's millions of dollars generated yearly for the town in the way of the utility tax. Many of the buildings are leased. We have a lease tax of 2%. So there's millions of dollars in lease tax from something like that. So at the end of the day, you have to calculate that. You have to look at that and say, what is it costing us versus what are we benefiting? And if the benefit in terms of, I'm just using raw numbers here. It's $10 million a year that the town is going to receive from a data center that's coming via the taxes that are available to the town. At the end of the day, if we look at that and say that is a benefit sufficient enough for us to allow a facility in a location that we decide, that we pick, right, then we're probably going to allow it. If we look at it and say it's not a benefit, then we won't do it. What happens with that $10 million? We have buckets, if you will, right? We have parks and recs amenities for our community that are very important for a lot of people. So investing into parks and recs, our public safety here is so important to us. So investing in public safety. Transportation, roads, investing, taking those monies and putting them in the buckets where our residents benefit. So if that's the case, in the end, we look at it and say, yes, we can see that there's benefit here, and we can see where we could use those monies to benefit our residents, and it's gonna make their quality. So the vision for this town is we're a trailblazing community, raising the bar for the best quality of life. So if we, in the process of that, can raise the bar for a better quality of life for you, then we're gonna do that.
The data centers themselves, are they going to create jobs?
Yes.
Very few, right? Very few, right?
So there are some statistics out there, and I don't pretend to know them, but there are literally thousands of jobs that are created as a result of these data centers. So the actual people that service the computers, there's maybe 100 jobs. But the additional jobs that come with the construction of the facilities, the maintenance of the facilities, the security for the facilities, all of those things create hundreds and hundreds of more jobs, right? So there is an analysis out there that shows some of that. Yes, sir.
Would it be wise or even considered, assuming that you consider permitting one or two or more of these centers to come in, would it be wise to set land aside rather than have them build here and then have encroachment come in, and then it will create a zoning problem later on? If you, from the start, say, well, this area will be designated for data centers alone, and nobody, or within so many miles or square footage, then that land has already been allocated for that.
Sir, that is a great question, and it is absolutely something we've been talking about at length. And I think we have an idea where they make sense for us, and they are far away from the population, and they're far away from where we plan on having a really cool downtown here right across the street, those kinds of things, right? So we're giving a lot of thought to that because we don't want to end up in a situation where we allow something to be built and then we regret it later on. Because you can't just like push it aside and make it go away once it's been built. So we will give a lot of thought to making sure that they go in the right places. Yes, ma'am.
Question, I don't know in your research, for, is there specific training for first responders? Because this is a large facility with machines in there. If something goes awry, fires or explosions, do they get first training to like, are we gonna go in or are we gonna stay out?
I'm calling in the relief pitcher. Calling in the relief pitcher, man, and we got the fire department here to answer that.
Well, good evening. My name is Alex Zapota, Assistant Chief of Northwest Fire. Yeah, there's specific training, but the reality is that data centers, in a nutshell, they're just a computer room. Normally, and honestly, the town did a lot of the heavy lifting already related to the building codes. When the plans come in, we'll review the plans to make sure that they're aligned with the most current fire code. And that normally includes pretty robust fire protection systems in-house and fire alerting systems. We don't expect to have a huge risk, but that's also part of what we would do is once the site is created, we analyze what kind of risks are involved and we update our training if necessary. Does that make sense? Okay.
All right. Again, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. If you didn't get your question answered, we'll hang on to it when we're sending your response. Thank you.